A Qantas plane has made an emergency landing at Sydney Airport after a suspected engine failure, which was followed by a grass fire. The flight was QF 520, a Qantas Boeing 737 flight departing Sydney Airport for Brisbane. The plane was taking off when passengers reported hearing a loud bang. Now, it's suspected there was a right-sided engine failure. It prompted an emergency landing. The plane did land safely with at least 140 passengers on board. The explosion is believed to have prompted a grass fire on the third runway at Sydney Airport. The passengers have disembarked safely and the fire is now under control. For more on this, let's go to Julia Bradley. Julia, what have we been told about this?
Well, Fiona, there's no doubt that flying can be nerve-wracking at the best of times, but what has unfolded earlier today would have been absolutely terrifying for some of those passengers on board this Qantas flight, more than 140 of them flying from Sydney to Brisbane, but really not what they were expecting when we saw that explosion, the engine exploding, and then that grass fire taking hold on one of the runways at Sydney Airport. Now, as you mentioned there, it is suspected that then the explosion of the engine led to that grass fire, but that is something which authorities will now be interrogating to work out whether those are linked. But really a nerve-wracking moment for a lot of those passengers. And we've seen some incredible pictures come into the newsroom this afternoon of the smoke and that fire really billowing from that third runway. It's a really hot day today in Sydney, about 30 degrees. There's a total fire ban in place on account of these really hot and windy conditions. So this all taking hold this afternoon. We have had some more detail on this. Qantas releasing a statement from pilot captain Richard Tobiano, and he said, "One of our flights to Brisbane experienced a suspected engine failure after takeoff from Sydney Airport this afternoon." It says after circling for a short period of time, the aircraft landed safely at Sydney Airport. Our pilots are highly trained to handle situations like this, and the aircraft landed safely after the appropriate procedures were conducted. We understand this would have been a distressing experience for customers, and we will be contacting all customers this afternoon to provide support. Also adding that they will be conducting an investigation into what caused the engine issue. Now, coincidentally, a journalist was on board that flight at the time that all of this unfolded, and she has reported hearing a loud bang when that engine failed.
Taking off, and we heard a bang just as we took off, and one of the engines appeared to have gone. It was silence on board for a while. It felt like we weren't gaining much altitude, so there was sort of worried looks in amongst the cabin. The pilot came on about 10 minutes later to allay concerns re safety and explained that they had a problem with the right-hand engine on takeoff and they had to shut it down for safety reasons. I'm assuming they then had to prepare everyone on the ground, so we were circling to the south of Sydney over the water for quite some time until we were able to land. It appears on one engine safely with a lot of cheering from on board, I can tell you that.
You do get a sense from those comments that Qantas was pretty quick to respond and try to allay passengers' concerns. So crucial in a moment like this. Thankfully, an emergency landing, though, and no reports of injuries.
Very terrifying situation, though. Thank you, Julia. Let's go live now to our reporter, Brent O'Halloran, who's at the domestic passenger terminal. Brent, what's going on there at the moment? What's the scene like?
Well, it is pretty quiet here at the Qantas Sydney terminal. Pretty average levels of activity for a Friday afternoon. We've not seen massive disruptions here at the terminal, at least. Now, we have seen AFP canine crews do a sweep of the baggage drop-off area, but that itself is not unusual as such. Now, Sydney Airport says there has been some disruptions as a result of these two incidents, and Qantas confirms they have a number of flights cancelled or delayed due to what they're describing as operational requirements. Again, basically because there are issues with one of the runways. Now, passengers on that Qantas flight flying from Sydney to Brisbane, they've been allocated new flights and they're all expected to leave Sydney sometime today. And we've received a statement from Sydney Airport. Part of it reads, Sydney Airport's priority is to conduct a full inspection of its parallel runway and to return it to service as quickly as possible. Sydney Airport's main runway is operational. However, passengers should also expect some delays, and we thank everyone for their patience. So anyone flying out of Sydney Airport, particularly those with Qantas tickets, are advised to check with the airline about possible delays or cancellations fee.
Thanks very much, Brent.